if you're not taking refuge in God, I'll tell you what's going to happen. This is what's happening for many people today when they're not taking this refuge. Okay. When you have refuge in God, you get divine protection. Okay, divine protection means that you have angelic help when you need it, and you have, most importantly, divine guidance. Why is divine guidance necessary? Because if you follow the guidance, you won't need the angelic help. Right? Like in martial arts, they say that the greatest martial artist is the one who doesn't walk down the street where they have to fight. Right? Because they're aware of the evil or the darkness there before they walk down and they go down another street. Right? Well, the greatest human being is following divine guidance, and therefore, wouldn't go down that street, wouldn't even go to that city if that was what divine guidance. And if divine guidance was to go, that person would be prepared to go there and know what they were walking into. You see what I mean? So there's a very, very powerful protection that comes from the divine guidance. And when you have this, what it creates inside of you is a very deep state of safety. Like for me, I know in my heart that I have great protection. I know it in my being, because it's happened so many times now that in almost every critical moment, and I've been in a number of very critical moments, something always came through and saved me. And it wasn't human. It was something beyond. So I know in my heart I have that safety, and I know for myself, as long as I keep my connection to God, God keeps its connection to me. But if I lose that connection to God, that's when I can get in trouble. So for me, that keeping that connection is a very, very, very important part of my life, of holding that connection to God. And there's many ways to do that. We'll be talking about it this morning. But essentially, the following the practices that keep that connection is sort of the master key for me, because I know when I'm following the practices and I'm doing the things that I've been taught, that this is always here. It's always here. So, and I also know that the one time, and I can say in the last 10 years that I can remember, there was only one time when I left this. And I remember very clearly the moment I left it. I said, it's just too much work. I don't want to have to do all this. It's just God is asking too much of me. And I remember I was sitting there one day and I thought, I just can't do it anymore. I just can't do it. And I heard something along the line of my consciousness like, are you sure that's your decision? And something like that. It was like a question. And the answer was, yes, I'm sure. I made my decision in that moment. And the minute I made it, it was as if in the inner worlds, like the clouds, like a thunderstorm came over me. Like all of a sudden, where usually in the inner world, I just always experience light. All of a sudden it was like black clouds came over me in that moment. And I remember I literally felt like a cold chill came in my being. And I started getting nervous. And I was thinking about, wow, what is this cold chill? And I heard death. I heard the word death. And I prayed. I said, God, am I clear that if I don't stay within your refuge of you that I might be facing death? And the answer I heard very clearly was yes. Absolutely yes. So shortly after that, within a matter of days, I almost was killed in a major car accident. And I realized that it really came because I had left the protection of God. That I had walked out of it, and that instead of having protection, I was with myself, and with being with myself, I had left divine protection. And in that, I had this major accident. I totaled a truck and was amazed that I lived through it. Okay, so the bottom line of it is that when you seek refuge with God, you have this really, really deep inner light. There's an inner light in you. You are surrounded by angelic angels who are helping you. And you're receiving divine guidance, which is helping you all the time with your world. That's a very incredible way to live. When you have that, it's a really wonderful way to live. It's actually very easy. It's a very easy life. Because you just don't make the mistakes that most people make. You don't go in a restaurant and eat bad food because God wouldn't have you go in that restaurant. You don't go on a flight that might be dangerous. You don't buy a car that's bad. You don't get into business deals that go south. Because the guidance is protecting you. You're getting the very, very deep state of guidance that's helping you. And that state of guidance is really, really valuable. Now, if you don't do this, what you end up with is the following. First of all, if you're not seeking refuge in God, where are you seeking your refuge? Refuge means where is your place of safety or protection? If you're not seeking it from God, where are you? Where are you getting it from? Well, for many people, the refuge they take is in their self. So they say, I'll protect myself. I'll seek my own intellect. I'll seek my own guidance. So they seek protection in themselves. But as I told you, when those 10 guys in the bathroom were there, and I have a brown belt in karate. I'm not a badly trained karate person. But, with 10 guys there, it wasn't going to serve me. You know what I'm saying? That taking refuge in yourself isn't really going to give you a lot of anything. If you're driving in an RV, you can take all the refuge you want in yourself. You know what? That tire blew. You might be a great driver, you're not going to get that RV up. It's just not going to get up. You need help to get that RV up. So when you take refuge in yourself, what ends up happening is you end up weak. The refuge in yourself, you're not that strong. You're actually very weak. You might be pretty smart, but at the end of the day, you're going to fall down. At the end of the day, you're going to fall down. So seeking refuge in yourself doesn't work. Some people, they seek refuge in drugs. So today, we have, I don't know, this is Austin, you probably have a fairly big drug culture here, I imagine, right? I mean, I've heard that. I don't know if that's true or not. Is that true?
I live about an hour away, so.
You don't know? Okay, I don't know. I mean, I've heard it, but I don't know. When they say where there's musicians, there's drugs. That's what I've heard. So, is that true? No, not true.
I don't think it's about musicians, I think.
No. That's good, yeah, please, right. So anyway, I don't know, So that's not going to take you very far, right? A lot of times people take refuge in power, so if I take refuge in law and order, or I take refuge in the army, or I take refuge in, the FBI, or whatever, taking refuge in some organization that can protect you, that might work. But the truth is that half the time these organizations are not all that clear themselves. So how do you know that what you're taking refuge is really going to be there for you? You see, so the bottom line is that taking refuge in things other than that is not all that effective. When you don't take refuge in God, in the inside of you, what you do is you open yourself up to depression. You actually open yourself up to depression, You have deep fear in you because you know deep inside that you actually are not protected. So now you have anxiety as well. So you now have increased the state of anxiety and depression inside yourself. You also end up with confusion because you don't really know what to follow. Do I go left or right or go center, or should I go or shouldn't I go, or what should I do or what shouldn't I do? You don't really know. You're confused. What do you follow? Who do you follow? What's the voice you follow inside? Where's your guidance? If you're New Agey, you follow your heart. Except half the time we don't know what our hearts want. Should I go with that guy or that guy? That girl or that girl? Should I take that job or should I take the other job? I don't know, they all feel good to me, I don't know what to do. What should I do? I'm following my heart, but I don't know what my heart wants. I'm confused. So following your heart doesn't really answer the question either. So you see, the whole concept of guidance is also confusing. Okay? So, understanding this in Sufism, we realize that there's a way out of this whole problem. And the way out of the whole problem is by taking our entire world and focusing it on God. That becomes the way out of the whole thing. Because why? Because on the inner level, by focusing yourself on God, you bring light into your being. You bring light into your being. And when you bring light into your being, that light, you will not be depressed. You will not be anxious. You will not be fearful. You will not be confused. You will have light, and that light will be clear. So when you bring God's light inside of you, your light becomes clear. Your inner reality becomes joyful. Your vision becomes long distance, or what's the word for that? You have a very deep perspective on things. Your wisdom significantly increases. Your comprehension and your understanding of what should happen or could happen or might happen all deepens significantly. When you're in the presence of inner light, your whole being becomes full of light and everything becomes easy for us. We're no longer confused by the clouds of confusion. We don't know what to do or what not to do and who we are and who we're not. Everything becomes clear. Everything becomes easy. Everything becomes easy. And the ultimate state of this, we say, is what we call divine slavery. Bad word today, I know, slavery. But divine slavery means when you realize that, you know what, every aspect of our human will ultimately gets us in trouble. When you realize that the human will itself is following ego itself, following its own desires itself, that's what gets us in trouble. And when you realize that by surrendering our will to God, so that we actually follow the highest light, the highest love, the highest wisdom, that this is the best choices for us, then we start to live what we call a divinely inspired life. So you begin to actually live that life. So the highest form in Sufism is when we realize that our human will is only getting us in trouble. And that by turning ourselves over to divine sustenance and divine knowing, that actually we live a better life. Okay. So that, in a nutshell, is the Sufi path. The Sufi path is this. It's not ultimately about developing our own personal power or our own personal will or our own personal strength or our own personal whatever. It's about recognizing that no matter how much we develop, it's not enough. That no matter how much we develop, like as somebody who's trained in some karate, there's all the stories about all these karate masters, or black belt karate masters, they've trained for 20 years, and they go out in the street and they get in a fight and they get beaten up. You know, why is it when you go out in the fight in the street you get beaten up? Because truthfully, you weren't strong enough. You weren't smart enough. So in our system, the whole thing is about turning back to your relationship to God. Okay? So this is the Sufi path, and the whole path is based on these statements. What is God? What is God? How do we find the light of God? How do we find it? How do we listen and surrender to it and open to it so that that light comes into us? And then how do we let go of our individual will to follow the divine guidance and the divine will? That is the Sufi path. In a nutshell, that's the entire path. It's nothing more than that. You're learning to do that in every breath of your life, every single breath of your life. So that's why I say, for me as a healer, you know, there's nothing higher than that, because all disease, when you get down to it, ultimately, at the end of the day, is somehow we're not following divine will. Okay. All right, so let's do some Q&A on this. I can see that I'm not sure I may have shaken you up more than I meant to. I see a lot of kind of funny looks out there in your face. Give me some feedback about what I said, and or some questions or anything like that.